all control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you. Welcome to a special Thursday episode of the Paranormal Portal. I hope you're ready to be wildly entertained because that's what I got planned. It's been a great day here. Hope you guys have had a great day, and thank you so much for spending a part of it here with me. I really appreciate it. We are not going to do the normal 45 minutes to an hour episode that we usually do on Thursdays. We got a special extension episode for you right here. We had the opportunity to have someone wonderful in the studio with us, and I got to turn on the moon. Forgot the moon. Got to get the moon going. Sorry. It's just not the same without the moon. All right, so we have a guest in the studio with us today. It's going to be a great discussion. I think it's incredibly timely given the amount of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, chaotic energy that's around. I think we're all having a lot of stress, a lot of confusion over current events and what to do with it, how to handle it, and that's, pretty important. So I hope this is a great show for all of you all. Thank you all for coming in. Those of you who are already in, great to see you all. And to those of you who will be coming in, welcome. So I hope you all are ready because we're going in. All right, so we are back at it. Welcome again, everybody. And tonight we have a special guest, and our guest is from Portland, but she's in town, and we had a chance to get talking, and I just am so thrilled to have this opportunity to have our guest tonight. So let me introduce her. This is The Way Witch is her business in Portland, Oregon, and she is Jenna Bowers, and she is right here next to me. And thank you so much for coming in and being a part of the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's kind of hard to hear. Sorry, that mic placement.
Need to get a little closer.
Is it on? Is the on the top? Sorry. Did it get turned on? It is.
It's on.
Wow, that's weird. Let me try again. Hold on. Okay, try now.
Hello. Oh, there I am.
It works so better when you're not muted. Rookie host.
That was the ghost. That wasn't us. That was something else going on.
We'll pan that off to the supernatural. That was just, they're trying to silence the voice of reason here. But welcome, and thank you so much for coming onto the show and spending the time with us, because I'm really excited for what you have to say and what you can teach us. And I think, I don't know, this has been a crazy time, huh?
Yes. Agreed. This is a crazy time. It's unlike anything any of us have ever experienced, It's totally unprecedented. So we're really, I think, living in the moment more than usual. At least that's how I feel.
I agree. And I feel like for me personally, it just feels like there's so many things hitting the fan from so many directions, and it just feels so overwhelming.
Yeah. There's a lot of different things to be overwhelmed about.
Yeah.
There's obviously our health and the health of our loved ones. There's the economy and all these things that are getting shut down, and everybody's going home from their jobs, and there's isolation and solitude and loneliness. And there's a lot of things that are scary and hard. Yeah.
Now, I got to ask you, and this is something that comes up a lot. There are a lot of people out there who believe that paranormal activity and energies are really acting up now as well. Do you see that in your experience, that we're dealing with a different kind of energy level or more activity on the paranormal?
Yeah, interesting question. For me, I I noticed that kind of activity happening most of the time. Mm-hmm. So I can't say that I've noticed it being much more than usual, other than it kind of ebbs and flows, but it's like, well, where's the moon at? It's the vernal equinox today. And, there's always something like what's in retrograde, there's always something that I can kind of attribute it to, like, oh, this is what's happening right now. And so, I mean, in a way, yes, I guess I can sense that there's more going on than usual, but then at the same time, there's always stuff going on.
Right.
And it really does kind of come and go.
And that's comforting. I mean, that's good to hear you say that, because I think a lot of people are really like worried about that as well. They're like, well, there's so much more going on. There's more hauntings. There's more dark hauntings. There's, I get that a lot. And I don't know. I think that right now, for whatever reason, I think we're really in a moment of flux, and it seems to be we're in a phase of transition, on like a global scale, on like our whole society is changing right now. And I'd like to believe we're actually moving towards a higher vibration. That's what I really like to believe.
Yes.
Would you say that that's true?
I mean, that's what I'd like to believe. Absolutely. And it's, it's something that a lot of those of us who are tuned in, have been saying for years, is that is where we're headed, or at least that's where we need to be headed if we're going to survive,
Right.
And holding out that optimistic hope that is what this is. I definitely tend towards optimism most of the time. And so, on my better days, I do feel like this is an opportunity. And there are a lot of people that are coming, together in new ways. We're getting a chance for rest that we don't normally have in our crazy busy lives. And kind of having to reprioritize, what's really important to us. And so it feels like a really great opportunity to shake things up. And it's also, the first time that we've come together globally like this to make these choices and all kind of be in something together. And so it's like, oh, we can do this. For a long time, I think a lot of us feel like the world's too big. There's, I'm so small. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing that can be done. But then we see that, like, oh no, we can. Yeah. And so it's like, so can now we do this for other things as well? Can we come together and make changes for the good of,
Right.
the planet and,
Right.
humankind and animal kind and plant kind. It's like, I really would like to think that's what we're doing here.
Me too.
I'm going to hold out hope for that.
And it seems to be a pattern that repeats like through our history. Like we always think that we're on these transitions, and then when we finally get to them, it doesn't feel like much has changed. And so I'm hoping that this is the real deal, and that we really are, coming over. I don't know if it would be an evolutionary hurdle or whatever, or an esoteric hurdle in how we're dealing with our energy and how we manifest our realities and stuff like that. But I find I'm very encouraged by the fact that it seems like a lot of people are waking up, like for whatever reason, the way that we've done things for time immemorial seems to be like, it doesn't fit anymore. Yeah. It's like a pair of old shoes, it's just like, oh, I just can't do that anymore. I got to have something new. And so that's what this feels like to me. And I don't know, I guess I'm always trying to be optimistic in my life. I always try to be, looking towards the brighter side and looking towards the good in people and thinking that, generally life is good, but there does also seem to be a lot of momentum by some to keep it negative and to keep it divisive. And that of course is hard. And I think we all feel that pull and not sure what to do. But how did your journey start? I think this is a great opportunity to see where you've been.
Okay, sure. How much time do we have? No.
We have all the time you need.
Honestly, whenever I think about this, I think it started at the very beginning because I was really fortunate. I've had a really privileged life, and I have to acknowledge that I grew up here in this beautiful, small town, and I was actually out in the woods. So I had just, at that time as a small child, what seemed like endless expanses of wilderness to play in, forest and meadows and the lake. And so I was always very in tune with nature, and I always was communicating with other realms, and I had a lot of freedom, and my parents were, wonderful and really open-minded. And so I think I was a witch before I started calling myself a witch. I was just out there talking to fairies and believing in magic. And then I think, around 10 years old, what we call the age of reason, I was a lot of my friends are going through these changes and thinking like, okay, we want to be big kids, we want to grow up, and that means we don't believe in magic anymore, you know. And I was like, yeah, I want to be a big kid and grow up, but like,
Sure.
I want to believe in magic. And so I can't remember the exact moment that I kind of claimed myself as a witch, but it was right around that age where I just said like, you know what, I'm a witch. That's the difference. Like, I'm going to be a big kid and I'm going to be magical. And, you know, I started just going to the library and checking out books and, you know, reading Starhawk and just kind of like getting some ideas about things. And I had a few good friends and I said, you guys are in my coven. And they were like, okay, sure. We're going to sneak out into the yard under the full moon and, you know, make potions. And they just went along with it for, you know, that was only for the first couple of years maybe.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just been like a really personal journey for most of my life. And that was, you know, 30 years ago. And I'm sure I told my parents because I told them everything. And I'm sure I said, hey guys, I'm a witch. And I'm sure they said, cool, you know, good for you. There was never any religion in our house. So I didn't have to like, you know, rebel against that. Like a lot of my friends do. A lot of witches I know today had to really kind of
Fight against
grapple with their Christian upbringings or something. And for me, that was never a thing. It was just like, I believe in magic. And my parents were like, oh yeah, we believe in magic. Totally. So I just was really fortunate in that I never got stifled. And so I just was able to run with it. And I also learned pretty quickly that people were pretty freaked out by witches and or really dismissive of witches. And so it was pretty private for a long time. You know, I had a few good friends who knew about it, but it was just like my own little thing that I did by myself. And you know, once I got into my 20s, I started telling a few more people and I started having friends coming to me saying like, hey, I think my house is haunted. Can you help me? Or, you know, stuff like that. And so I started to work with people a little bit, but it was still like, I didn't just tell people. I didn't just come out and say I'm a witch and until I felt safe to do so. And yeah, it wasn't until I was 30 that I started to actually train with some different like shamanic healers and learn some new techniques and started to decide I wanted to turn this into my profession from being just my own personal pursuit to something I was going to bring out into the world. And then even then it took a couple of years for me to publicly call myself a witch. You know, it was like I had a lot of people, you know, with the best intentions say to me, don't do it. You know, people won't like you. They won't come to you. They won't trust you, whatever. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And then I kind of had to, you know, sit with it and think, you know, I've always loved the word witch. It's the word I chose as a 10-year-old child. It's the word I'm still using for myself. It's the word that matches me, you know, in my spirituality, my craft, my ancestry. You know, it works for me. I just love it. And so it was like, you know, maybe this will just be the perfect self-selection. It's like the people who are not into witches, they don't need to come to me. We don't need to I don't need to try to work with every single person in the world. Like if witches freak you out, like by all means, go find someone else to help you.
Right.
And it's been great ever since I really like claimed it and owned it. Now I just, you know, I joke that like it's a constant process. You know, I find myself wanting to occasionally not say that, depending on where I'm at. But you know, like it's like I push myself. I'm at the doctor's office. They ask me, what's your profession? I say witch. It's like, just say it. Just tell them what you're doing. Like, don't hold back. Don't be shy. And that's part of it. You know, I own it. And then people, oh, okay. You know, it's when I'm apologetic, like, oh, I'm a witch. Is that okay? You know, people are like, oh, that's weird. And so, yeah, you know, I think there is I've noticed that there's a shift happening where it almost feels like witches are becoming kind of trendy right now. You know, there's like all this witch media and I love it. I think it's great. It's like the more witches we have, the better the world will be, in my opinion. And it's fun to have it be something that you can find in pop culture because I love anything witch. Like I've been watching the same witch movies over and over again my whole life. All the witch books there are, even the crap. I ingest it all because I'm just like, I love it. I love it. So the fact that there's new stuff coming out is really exciting. So yeah, it's like, it's been this evolution of just me as a person, and I'm realizing more and more how everything I do is a part of that. You know, the thing about being a witch is that it's a craft, you know, and so anybody can can do the craft of witch, you know.
Yes.
You know, it can have spirituality and philosophy and science can all be a part of witchcraft, but it's pretty individual. You know, I mean, every belief is individual, no matter what you're subscribing to. But you know, you can be a secular witch. You can be an atheist witch. You can be a Christian witch. Like, it doesn't have to come hand in hand with a belief. And so, for me, there's belief as a part of it, but it's like everything I do, the way that I make my tea, the way that I water my plants, you know, it's all part of that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I agree that in a lot of ways, and it's been for the paranormal as well, is that where these discussions used to be, you know, the whispered water cooler discussions about, hey, you know, something weird happened in my house, or, you know, I saw a Bigfoot, and you're afraid to talk to anybody because of that ridicule that comes with that, and how those ramifications affect all of your life just by, you know, the need to share. And certainly it's also true for practicing something that is not the mainstream, or at least there's such ramifications behind it and dogma that surrounds it that it makes it, you know, really uncomfortable. So I'm really glad that people are evolving to the point where they can have the discussions. And like, you know, for you to sit here and just say, this is who I am, and you're okay with that, you're safe in that, and you know that it's not going to, you know, lead to being ostracized by, you know, the communities and stuff. I mean, there's still people out there that are, you know, certainly, as we saw today on the posting, it was like some guy came out of the woodwork and was like, you know, going full Jesus on us. And it's like, you know, I appreciate people have faith, you know, I really do. But to not understand something and make a complete and absolute judgment of what's going on, which is contrary completely to the tenets of Christianity anyway. And then, you know, I just thought, wow, that is just so inappropriate. And it's so sad because that's all that person saw. They saw a bias, and they saw an ideology rather than you as a person and what you're representing. And I think that of course is going to still happen. It always will be a part of our society because that's just how some people roll. But also there's also those people that don't really understand anything about it. They think that saying you're a witch is almost like saying you're a goblin, you know, like you're a supernatural creature or something. I've seen that one on the message board. It's like, hey, do you guys think witches are real? And I'm like, well, do you think Christians are real? You know, I mean, it's people don't really understand it, but I'm really glad that maybe they're starting to.
Yes, I agree. And, you know, unfortunately, for all I said about how much I love pop culture witches, it's still so far from anything that is real, you know. I had a real love-hate with Sabrina that just came out because it was like, oh, good, there's a new witch thing. And, oh, fun, there's a bunch of, like, lead female strong characters and stuff. And then it was like, and they're all worshiping Satan. Like, great, thanks, you guys. This is really going to set us back, you know.
Oh, no.
I mean, most witches will tell you that there is no Satan in the craft. You know, that's not a part of that ideology is completely Christian, you know? And so it's like, that person on Facebook who was upset with us today, you know, I do get that from time to time, the people who are really kind of still buying into that old fear around the idea that witches are evil and witches are in league with the devil and and or imaginary, you know, like they're like werewolves and vampires or whatever. Not that those could be real too, but you know what I mean? Like, we're just like so... It's just such a funny thing where you're like, no, we're just basically like, we're like people who are really into plants and crystals and the moon and whatever. I mean, every witch is different, but you know, it's like, we're just into feathers and animals.
My big jar of feathers there.
Feathers and, you know, skeletons. It's like candles. Like, this is what witches are. We're just, you know.
I guess I didn't even know I was a witch, ladies and gentlemen, but I guess I can come out of the closet now.
The broom closet. He's out of the broom closet.
I had no idea, but, you know, I think it's cool. And I think that a lot of wisdom has been, well, potentially lost. I don't know if it's still out there in some form or another, or being handed down within lines of people. But, you know, I think that those were the old wisdoms, and they knew so much about the world around us. And it's funny because even in our modern age, you see sometimes that those old beliefs are coming back. And I don't mean just in the fact that, hey, there's witches now, or there's druids, or, any number of magicians, whatever. But I mean in the fact that what was really painful to me was the idea that all of that could be lost, if people didn't continue to carry it on. And I think that we even have seen medical breakthroughs based on those old wisdoms, and treatments based on those old wisdoms. Like, for instance, a lot of those practices speak of grounding, like the importance of grounding to the earth. And, it's just some hokey belief that's been around forever, but doctors are now finding out that chronic inflammation can be treated by being barefoot, and being connected to the earth, because there's apparently some ion exchange that helps, that inflammation. And, it's those old wisdoms again. So I think that that's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. And, when you speak to that, it's just, if you look globally, since we keep talking about that, pretty much every indigenous tradition has that same kind of, there's like a cord, a thread that runs through all of them, where it comes back to the earth, it comes back to nature, it comes back to like living in harmony with plants and animals, and being with the elements and being with the celestial bodies. And I don't think they would appreciate me calling them witches, but it's kind of
Sure.
all it's all the same thing, whatever words you want to use.
Right.
There's a lot of similarity when you look back, or no matter where you are in the world. And I think that's a big concern. Look at in our country, look at the Native American wisdom that's being lost. I mean, it's undoubtedly there is stuff being lost, and it is also something that we can remember. Mm-hmm. It's like in us, because we do have those ancestral ties, those karmic ties. We have that lineage in us and around us. And so even though certain things have and will be lost, the basics, the tenets of these wisdoms is very innate, I think. Mm-hmm. I think that's why it was so easy for me to be a witch at such a young age. It was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
The forest is sacred, and the water is sacred, and this is where the fairies live. Like, I get it.
So how is it then, you grew up out here, and of course you're surrounded by this pristine wilderness and some of the most beautiful natural places in the world, I would say. I mean, this is arguably one of the most beautiful places I've ever even seen, whether it's pictures or in real life. I mean, it's just gorgeous here. But how now, living in Portland, does that work for you? Do you feel that there's a lapse, or are you still able to connect in the same way in that town?
Yeah. Definitely it's very easy to connect in wilderness. It always has been. Portland is actually a pretty green place. There's a lot of outdoors around to get to, and I do a lot.
Okay.
I've got dogs, and we go out and take the dogs on adventures as often as we can, and get out into the woods and get out to the water and stuff. And so I don't feel, I do miss it. I definitely feel it when I am in a place where it's so much more accessible and just around, and I love it. I do. But in Portland, what I get instead of that is more community, and there's a wonderful community here, and I love my people here. But I don't have a lot of, witches here necessarily. Sure. I mean, all my friends are pretty magical, I think, in my family.
Sure.
Hey guys. But I really have a pretty broadening community of like-minded folks in Portland, and that goes a long way for me. And I also find that being a witch, having had these connections with the elements and the celestial bodies for so long, that I can connect with them wherever I am, and that's good. What I do. I just, when I open my sacred space and call the corners, I just invite all those energies in, and I feel them. So I don't feel like I'm...
That's a great point.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm necessarily starving for them. And is it easier to connect with them when I'm out there? Of course it is, But I make a point to do it as often as I can. We go out to the coast, which is a really wonderful place to connect. And there's lots of woods around. The gorge is right there. I mean, so...
There's plenty of places.
I get a fix, but I do come back to Idaho a lot. I mean, I know you live next door to my mom, and I'm sure that you've noticed, like, oh, she's here again. It's like I do. I come back a few times a year to see my family and friends here, and so I always am excited to get back to the lake and back into the woods. And it helps. I mean, there's nothing like doing a little ritual, on the shores of Lake Ponderay. It's like,
yeah, I imagine that's really cool.
I feel very inspired in times like that.
Now, I'm hoping in your visit here that we'll have an opportunity to maybe teach some best practices, some basics, because I think that now it's so important to learn how to protect yourself and what methods can people use to do that, because I think we all feel like we're under attack all the time, whether it's direct or indirect, just by our lives, by the weight of the world, as we were talking about before. But I think that this is an awesome opportunity to hear some of your advice and some of your insights into how do we protect ourselves. Let's say, just mitigating even the over energy of things. What would you suggest?
Yeah. Great question. I feel like, where do I begin? Wash your hands, obviously. But with that, like I say that as kind of jokingly, but I will say that anything you do when done with intention can be energetic as well. So like, after I see a client, I don't always have time to take a shower, right? Sure. So I go and I wash my hands, and as I'm doing so, I'm kind of focusing on letting go of any energy I might have absorbed in that session, and calling on the water to carry it away from me. And you can do the same thing with a walk. It's just a walk, but you can say, I'm going on this walk to like breathe fresh air and receive sunlight or rain or whatever is out there in the time, and let it cleanse my energy field. You can take a shower the same way, you can drink water the same way. It's like our intentions are kind of the secret of witchcraft, is like everything you do is you're already doing it. So just take a moment and set an intention with it and let it be, and call in your allies, whether it's you're working with water or fire or whatever, light a candle. It's just a candle. But if you light a candle and you say, I'm calling on the element of fire to help me to purify this space I'm in, it will go a long way. So you can really do the things you're already doing, but just take a moment with your intention. Breathe deeply for just a minute, and as you're doing so, you're really connecting to the element of air, and you're asking it to move through your blood and cleanse you. And then I have much more to say about that, but like for the most part, like if it's something that you're already doing that makes you feel good, dancing, walking, singing, etc. I mean, there's so many things, the food you're eating, whatever it is, anything that you're doing that is something that already nurtures you, then just take an extra, 30 seconds and set your intention around how it's also cleansing you, you're doing this really purposefully to feel, more connected and more clear. And then, you mentioned grounding. There's a lot of different ways to do that. One is obviously being barefoot and going out onto the ground if you can. I mean, that'll help you so quickly. It's so wonderful. I have a meditation that I do a lot, and if any of my clients are watching, you've done this meditation with me. It's my favorite one. And the idea, and I won't lead you guys through it, but I'll give you kind of an idea of how you could do it yourself. I like to imagine that I'm surrounded by a ring of trees. If you have a particular tree you love, or something, you can always tailor it to fit you. I often use cedar because I have all this cedar that I collected from my friend's house, and I will burn the cedar and invite the cedar in, and I imagine there's a ring of cedar trees surrounding us, because cedar to me has this really protective, old grounded energy anyway. So I will often choose that. Also, there's some cedar trees in my neighborhood, so I can imagine that I'm right there with them. So I imagine the trees, and then I go up to a tree, and I kind of connect with it, and then I allow myself to like go inside of it, kind of melt into the tree, and then from there you can kind of imagine that you're like almost like an extension of your veins. You have roots coming down out of your feet, out of your like root chakra. You have branches coming up out of your hands and your crown chakra, and you kind of let yourself kind of grow into the tree. And then from there, you can imagine that everything that's not, and you can set this intention, everything that's not serving you is kind of flushing down through your roots and out into the earth, always with a really clear intention that what you're releasing is non-toxic, right? I always like to think of it like fertilizer. I like to joke that it's like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on the show.
It's okay.
It's like taking a great shit, it's like energetic shit. Because you think like that's what fertilizer is. We're putting shit literally into the earth. And so it's like, it's just stuff that once served you and
Yeah.
is no longer serving you, and it needs a space to go. And the earth is like, ooh, I can mulch this, I can compost this, I can use it. So everything that you're releasing, you can feel good about releasing, like you're feeding the earth, like you're fertilizing the earth. And just, you can use the rain to come through you and clear you out. You can use the wind to come through you and clear you out. You can call on that sunlight, moonlight, starlight to come in through your branches and clear you out. And, you know, when I do this with clients or in groups, sometimes I'll do a really long, like luxurious version of this. Will take like 20, 30 minutes to do it. But when I do it by myself, like I'll go out into public and all of a sudden I'll be overwhelmed, and I'll just like real quick, like see my tree, go into my tree, put my roots down and just say, okay, like I'm grounded, I'm protected. Anything that isn't mine that comes into my energy field today is going to go right through me and down into the earth. And it helps a lot. So put your roots down, folks. I'm sure some of you know and are aware of this idea. You know, I didn't invent this by any means, but it goes a long way for me. And, you know, kids really like this meditation. You know, I think it's really great for everyone. It's really helpful when I'm trying to fall asleep. You know, just like, it feels really comforting to be inside of a tree and just be connected to the earth and sky in that way.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful technique. And I think it's good for both like maintenance, you know, like clearing yourself out when you've collected stuff that isn't yours or isn't helpful to you anymore. And it's also really good, like in the moment, like I said, if you are getting bombarded with energy that is that you don't want to get like lodged in your field, you just put your roots down and let it just move right through you. It's like, all right,
cool.
This is coming at me. I don't know how to block it. You know, I have lots of things to say about how to block it too, but like,
Good.
if it's coming in anyway, it's like, just send it out then. Just like, don't let it get lodged. Don't let it become something you have to deal with. Just let it go right through you.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Well, the funny thing is that I'm sitting here just going, wow, because I actually wrote a book that's going to be published soon. And in the book, it's called Reflections of a Growing Soul. And in there, I talk about getting centered, the need to be centered, and how we're all off center. And one of the methods that I described in my book, and it's funny because you just repeated it, and it just came to me in inspiration. It's like, be the tree. Be the tree. You know, look at a tree, become the tree, feel the warmth of the sun, the rain as it hits you, feel your roots digging down into the soil, and become one with that. And then you're just repeating. It's like, wow, that's a resonance. That's really cool. And that's, maybe that speaks to the Akashic records or something, you know, that information is out there and it just comes to us. But that's really cool. That's a really cool synchronicity.
Yeah, awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I definitely didn't invent it. It's just something that has always worked for me, and I find that it's really easy to connect with the elements from within a tree because, right, be a tree. Like a tree is so connected. They've got the wind and the light and the water and the, you know, it's all there. It's all there. So, yeah, that's one of my favorites. I love that. That's cool.
That is very cool. And I think that those mental exercises. Now, I have to ask you, is it necessary, or is it more empowering in things like that if you and I don't know how to phrase this correctly maybe, but if you align with those elements, is there practices or methods to really connect with the water element? Is there practice or methods to connect with the fire, earth, air? You know, all of those things. Because, I mean, we all can certainly look at water and go, okay, take my stuff away, I'm done with it. But is it also maybe necessary or helpful to create a resonance or a connection on a spiritual level to those elements? And how if yes, how would you suggest doing that?
Yes, I would say yes.
Okay.
I do think it's helpful. I think of them like relationships, you know, so just like any relationship with any other being, you know, you want it to be reciprocal. You want it to be respectful. And then as far as connecting, you know, I mean, there's so many ways. These things are all around us. You know, we can start with ourselves. It's like,
Right.
and maybe I'm sure plenty of you guys have heard this concept before, but it's like, you know, this idea that our body is the earth element. It's that tangible, like, you know, our blood is the water element, our breath is the air, and then our spirit, that essence of us, is the fire. You know, so like you don't have to go anywhere outside of yourself to connect with these elements. That said, some people do it with a candle. Same thing, right? The candle, you have the wick is the earth, the flame is obviously the fire, the wax is the water, and then the air is the fuel, right? The air is what it eats, so to speak. And so, a lot of people will set up on their altar, they'll have something to represent each thing, feathers, incense, those are pretty common for air. Candles are pretty much the number one for fire. Water, often you'll have a chalice with some water in it. It's like pretty straightforward. And then for earth, it could be flowers, it could be crystals, it could be wood, it could be a wand or, really a piece of fruit. Like,
Sure.
It's whatever you feel. And so a lot of people will have like a visual, tangible connection to those things, so they can really feel like they're connecting in that way. Another thing that, I recommend to anybody who's doing any sort of work with the paranormal, with other realms, is that idea of opening space. And that is a very old, ancient idea that spans the globe and is done in as many different ways as there are people who are doing it. So there's really no wrong way to do it. But a pretty common way to do it is to call in the elements to kind of, like, often they correspond with the directions. So it would be like the fires in the south and the waters in the west, and not everybody puts their water in the west, so it's totally up to you. But it's like you kind of you call in the directions with the elements, and so when I do that, I always think of it like I'm calling on my friends, I'm calling on my allies to come in and like kind of help me hold space. They're holding space for me as I'm holding space for my clients or for my magic that I'm creating or whatever. And I make sure I really feel their energy come in, and when they do, I thank them for coming, and I feel that kind of the difference between what the fire feels like and what the water feels like, and I connect with them in that way. And I always say thank you when I'm kind of releasing it. Thank you for being here, and I always acknowledge. Well, I don't always. It's different every time I do it, but
Sure.
I will say, like, thank you for your your power, your grace, your inspiration, whatever it is that I feel that they're bringing to me. One thing I do, like I said, it's a relationship. So you want to be aware that if your friends are coming when you call, then you also want to come when they call, and that can be harder to decipher. It's not always so obvious when you're being called. But I think that, in my experience, it's usually something that we have an opportunity to do that maybe scares us a little bit. But we know it's good for us, or will, kind of help us to evolve and learn and grow. And those are the things that we're being asked to step more into our power and more into that ability to actually create change,
Right.
hopefully for the highest good of all. Hopefully. And, and so, you can always say no. You don't have to
Right.
answer the call. But I think that the more we do, it's the more it benefits us, and the more it shows that we're in this together.
Right.
I'm not just out here saying like, come over, do this for me, do this for me, do this for me. I'm also saying, oh, okay, I'll do that. And you can be really tangible with that kind of stuff too. It's like, obviously don't, call on the earth to be your ally and then go and, trash the earth. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like really, we can get really obvious with these things too.
Right.
And just trying to be really respectful and loving with whatever we're interacting with.
No, I think that's great. I think that throughout the course of our lives, we don't really acknowledge the spirit of all things, and yet it's in every teaching around the globe that all of these things do have. They do have an intelligence. They do have a spirit to them, and I think that most of us go through life without acknowledging that, and I think that that's very powerful. I like what you said about the body. Our bodies being representative of those things, and I think I've heard it before, but I don't know that when I heard it years and years ago, if I really was ready to understand what that meant. And so when you said it now, it's like, oh yeah, okay. Which is kind of foolish. I feel kind of foolish that it never really hit home before now, but it does. It really does. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's really powerful. So, but protection, we talked a little bit about protection. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, or how.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I always start with opening space. I think that right there is like can bring so much protection. But that's, I usually only open space when I'm actually stepping in to do a piece of work.
Okay.
I don't really necessarily walk around all day with it open.
Sure.
I will, like when I'm traveling, I'll open it around my vehicle or whatever. But like for the most part, that's not really a practical thing for like day-to-day life. Excuse me. One thing that I tell people, a lot of people who come to me are empaths, and I think a lot of people are empaths. And
Yes.
if you're out there and you're not sure if you're an empath, you probably are. It's like, do you feel other people's feelings? Then yes, you're an empath. Like, it's pretty simple. Most of us are. If we aren't, it's because we've dulled it down to protect ourselves, which is understandable. No judgment, but that is probably what's going on. If you don't feel other people's feelings, there's a good chance that's what's going on for you. Is that you've learned to protect yourself by not feeling other people's feelings, because it is utterly overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I always tell people is you have a choice. You have a choice. You get to choose if you want to receive this information or not. And I think that, the delineation that I make, and this is just kind of linguistics, but it helps me keep it straight, is I like to tell people there's empathy, where we are feeling other people's feelings. And then there's compassion, where we're feeling for other people and holding space for their feelings, without actually having to feel their feelings. And I say, it starts by understanding the difference and making the choice to be compassionate instead of empathetic, because I think that empathy, is actually really inappropriate and dangerous, in these terms, of course.
Sure.
Because it's, okay, so imagine you and I are both empaths. So I come to you and I'm feeling really low, and I feel really sad and really angry or whatever. And then you're sitting here and you're picking up on all that. So you start feeling all this anger and sadness, right? First of all, at this point, you can't help me because you're feeling all this stuff. You can't help me at all. And then guess what? I'm an empath. So I start to feel your anger and sadness.
Yeah.
And then it gets harder for me, right? And then we're both just like on the floor, like feeling just terrible because we're amplifying each other's feelings.
Sure.
And neither of us is helping the other one in this case, whereas if you come to me and you're feeling anger and sadness, and I can just say like, this is a safe space for you to feel that way. I understand. I've also felt those things in my life. I don't need to feel those things to understand that you're feeling those things. And how can I help? And then all of a sudden there's an opportunity for you to maybe feel less of those things because someone is seeing you and witnessing your feelings. And I have all these techniques to help you to get through those feelings. And so all of a sudden, we're both feeling good instead of the opposite. And so that's why I tell people, like, you make that choice. You can say, you can declare, every morning if you need to or whatever, just like, I welcome compassion. I'm going to feel my own feelings. That's it.
Yeah.
It's like, I try not to use the not statements, like, you know what I mean? I don't know
Oh, sure.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not empathetic. I'm not going to feel your feelings. Like, those aren't helpful. Just, I'm going to feel my own feelings. I'm going to hold space for other people's feelings, period. I'm just really choosing that you deserve that boundary. That's a big one for people, is I think that, in a way, empathy is seductive because it's kind of a superpower.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look at me. I'm psychic, right? I'm feeling other people's feelings. Like, it can be a little bit exciting to feel that. And so, it's just a reminder that it's not helpful. It's not helpful to you. It's not helpful to them. You deserve to feel good. You deserve to only have your own emotions and feelings to manage. That's enough, to manage other people's feelings. And so it really just it sounds so simple, but it makes a big difference when you start making these choices of like, I don't actually need to feel your feelings. I can just feel for you.
Right.
Right. And so do that, everyone, to start. And then, as far as like having like actual like boundaries up, the one of the, I think, kind of most simple ones that I have people do is kind of like, again, it's like a meditation where I kind of I invite us to drop into the space of our heart and kind of like sit, like I always like have you come up with a comfortable, beautiful place in your heart that you want to be, like your best chair or a hammock on the beach or whatever. You see yourself there, and then while you're there in the space of the heart, you start to notice that you're surrounded by this beautiful, like really kinetic energy. Like our hearts are constantly moving and making energy. And so it's right there, it's available to us. And so while I'm in there, I start to, and there's this idea of like rubbing your hands together until you feel energy, right? Kind of the same thing. You're doing it until you feel your heart energy. And then you start to like taffy, like pull it around you. You just pull it all the way down under your feet, on top of your head, wear it like a hood, over your hands. You just expand this infinite source of energy, or at least, I mean, as long as you're alive, a source of energy of your heart to surround you. And then first I like to have it be like a bubble.
Right.
And then, if it you might, when you're starting this practice, you might need to do a little kind of test with it to make sure that it is working.
Right.
And so I like to think of it as a filter. So what I do is I get my bubble out, and then I imagine someone that I love and trust unconditionally, their energy. I invite their energy to come and stand on the outside of my bubble, and then I invite them to come in and notice that they're able to come in. Kids and animals work great for this. There's never any qualms, right? It's like we trust these kids, we trust these animals. Like we know they're not going to hurt us, right? They come right in. Okay, it works. The filter works. Like the things that are bringing me love and trust can come right in. And then you imagine someone that you definitely don't trust, right? Someone whose energy you don't want in your field. Same thing. Have them come outside your bubble and then see if they can come in. And if they can, what you're going to want to do is just reinforce it. Like bring more of that heart energy there. You can use your hands if it helps, or just your imagination, but you just reinforce it until they can't come in, and so then you know that you have this, like, it's not a barrier. It's not like an impenetrable wall. It's a filter that lets through energy that matches the energy of your heart.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is like a beautiful, pure, loving energy, right? So if it matches that energy, it comes right in and it can feed you and be with you. And if it doesn't, it can't. It gets repelled. And then once I have that taken care of, then I like to like bring it in and like kind of like tap it down so it's like a bodysuit. Okay. So you're not walking around in a bubble. You're walking around in this like sparkly heart energy bodysuit,
Sure.
And that can go. Those can be really helpful. If you're really struggling with other people's energy, that would be a great thing to do every morning before you leave the house. Excuse me. And if I find that for me, when I do that, it lasts about a day or two before I need to like re-up it.
Oh, okay.
I only really do it when I know I'm going into a situation where I need it, or if I'm all of a sudden find myself in a situation where I need it, it's oh shit, the more you practice it when you are in a calm, meditative place, the quicker you can go there when you need it. Same with the tree. It's like if you practice it, you have it as a part of your morning or nighttime ritual or whatever, then you know what it feels like. You know exactly what it feels like when you're inside of your tree or when you're inside of your heart energy, so that when you are in a moment when you need it to work instantly, you don't have to teach yourself. You've already got it.
Right.
You go there, you feel it, it's working. And then, one other thing I'll say about that is that when you are wearing a glowing, beautiful bodysuit of your heart energy, it's lovely. It's very shiny. It's very sparkly. It's also very visible. And for some of us, that can be a problem too. We don't want to be visible because it's attractive. And we don't necessarily want to attract every energy to us. We don't, we have a barrier and we can, but like, if something really wants to get through, it'll hammer away at it. So I do a little like invisibility on top of that.
Okay.
And what I do for that is, I'm sharing all my secrets tonight. Is I just imagine that there's I tune into the energy of the moon. Okay, the moon has the dark side of the moon is always present yet always unseen. Right. Okay. So I tap into the moon, who's another one of those beings that I have a strong connection to and always have. And again, it's a relationship. So you develop that relationship with the moon. And then when you call on her, she's right there. You ask her to cloak you in her dark moon energy. And so I kind of almost like pull it down around me. And for me, it kind of falls around me like a dark swirling mist. I've had other people tell me it looks like a black silk or velvet or something, or like a cape of the night sky, whatever it is, but just let it like settle all the way around you so that you are holding that energy of present and yet unseen.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it really helps if you like, for me, like if I'm going into a haunted house situation, for example, it's like, I don't necessarily want to show up in this place where I don't know what I'm dealing with, just like bright and shiny, right? Because that is super attractive. I mean, I've made that mistake. I've been bright and shiny in a place and then been like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Now everybody's looking at me and that wasn't what I was going to try and do today, Yeah. And so I think it can be really helpful to cover ourselves up that way, you know?
Yeah.
If you
That's
want to be
really
bright
cool.
and shiny, say you're going on stage or something, it's like,
Sure.
you don't have to do that. You can be bright and shiny, but if
Right.
if that feels a little bit too vulnerable to you, then just invisibility cloak.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Now, would you say that that's enhancing the aura, this whole heart energy practice?
Absolutely.
So our aura exists in and of itself. It's always there, right? But this practice would be to reinforce and armor it up, for lack of a better term. Okay.
Yeah, you're kind of drawing on the energy that's already like innately in your body to reinforce it.
Okay.
Again, it's intention, right? It's like it's already there, but you can intentionally reinforce it and strengthen it.
Now, I got to wonder, in our natural states, are our auras possibly just not really focused, and so they do offer a protection in and of that they are our field of energy, but maybe not really effective because they're unfocused, and because most people are unfocused, me included. I'm all scattered all the time, so I mean my aura is probably like a flag, just one of those wavy happy people or something. But a practice like this would then maybe tune it and make it so much more proficient at protecting us on an energy level.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that
Okay.
our energy body or our aura, is just as real and susceptible as the rest of us. We have our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, our energy body. It's like all of these pieces of ourselves can be strengthened or weakened. They can be more or less healthy. They can, there are things that are going to feed us and things that are going to hurt us. It's like that's
Right.
true for our physical body as much as it is for our energetic bodies. So yeah, all the things I've already mentioned, like the tree meditation is so good for our aura. It's so good for our energy body because our energy bodies can really hold a lot. They can hold traumas, our own as well as our ancestral and karmic traumas. They can our collective, traumas of being alive in the world today. I mean, there's so many different things that we can hold in our energy body. We can hold the negative energy someone sends at us when they're mad at us, or
right.
the time we fell and hurt ourselves. It's just like it can be all over us. And so
Sure.
when that's going on, yeah, of course it's not going to be just like our immune system. It's not going to be functioning at its highest level. So if you can take a little time, whenever you can, I mean, no pressure. I know we're all busy. So, daily would be great, but I know that can be unreasonable for a lot of us. So it's just, it's like, but again, like I said, it can be when you take your shower.
Right.
You can take a shower, and the whole time you're taking your shower, you can be clearing your energy field. I mean, you can even, I'm not going to give you guys a chakra lesson right now, but, like, if you want to know more, there's tons of information. But basically, the idea being that we have like 7 major chakra centers, and, it's common knowledge that you can, with those of us who know about chakras, that they spin, clockwise and counterclockwise. And when they're spinning counterclockwise, they're discharging. So you can actually, while you're in the shower, you can go right into your chakras and like kind of spin them and let go of that energy that they ready to release right into the water. That will strengthen your, I mean, as will listening to music.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Okay.
there's so many, and again, if you just take that moment to set that intention that that's what you're doing with that activity, it will go a long way, and you will feel it. And I do think that having a strong energy body, I think it really reinforces our physical body as well. I think when we're talking immunity, which we are all talking immunity right now, I think that if you can really take some time to nourish your energy body, it will protect you.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to tell you can then go run around in the streets and stop washing your hands. I mean, take care of yourselves physically, of course. And you can really strengthen your immunity, I believe, by strengthening your energy body. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I really agree. And ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are open. If any of you have a question for Jenna, please feel free to call in at 720-923-0500, 720-923-0500, or just look above my head under the words Paranormal Portal on your screen, and you'll see it. It's there. Just little small font, but it's there. So that is all part of the equation tonight. We are talking about energy, healing, protecting, and so on. So this is absolutely amazing. I'm just loving this conversation. It's so powerful because these are all things that I've had pieces and parts for years, but this is really very much making them all cohesive and filling in a lot of blanks for me. So I really appreciate what you're bringing to the table.
Thank you.
I got to ask you, what about, I know that not many practitioners, but I think, okay, let me say this. Of course, there are spells, and people do spells a lot. Most often, people don't do negative spells, but there are people who do. But would you say that spell work is just, and I'm not, this is not a statement of diminishment or trying to make it not profound. I don't I'm talking like I'm 3 years old here. But would you say that spell work is primarily focused energy towards manifestation? I mean, that sounds really obvious, but I think that people, when they think of spell work, they think about, I need to have a circle. I need to bring in the corners, like you were explaining, and then I need this herb and this candle and this, and it becomes an exercise of things. And I just wonder, aren't we always casting spells by just the way that we send energy out in our lives? And what do you think about that idea?
Yes, I have said this before too. I do think that we are always casting spells, and I think that it's, a spell can be a really big, elaborate ritual with all of your, tools and ingredients, and the moon is just right, and and that's great. I think that the point of that is to just focus your own intention, and it's more likely to have success in that way because it's all about the power of us, obviously combined with the other powers that we're calling in. And when we speak, it's a spell. When we think, it can be a spell. That's why I think it's so important to be really careful with the way that we speak, and the way we speak about ourselves is really big. If you're walking around saying like, I'm terrible and no one's ever going to love me and I'm never going to succeed and which a lot of us are, unfortunately. Depression and anxiety are really rampant, and a lot of people are suffering and struggling, and I'm not trying to judge you. I'm just saying that you're powerful. And if you're saying that, it's going to be true. Right. And I've had a lot of people come to me with, a kind of a curse that was laid upon them that was unintentional. It wasn't like someone who was a witch who sat down and with all their ingredients to cast a curse on someone. It was just someone who was like, I hope you, right, rot in hell or whatever. They're kind of sending that energy that way. And when it's said with that much emotion, it can have a lot of power. And so someone will come to me and be like, ever since this one thing happened, I've been feeling like I was cursed, or is that possible? And it's like, oh yeah, you can hurt someone without having all the techniques in place. And so, you can help someone as well, which is beautiful. Sure. I've said before to, to Christians that, or whoever, not to just pick on Christians, but religious people, that a spell can be just like a prayer. It's the same thing. It's just like you're speaking to the powers that you believe in and asking for help with something. It's, it can be that simple. And so, I do think it's really, really possible to cast spells without meaning to. And so that's why it's just really important to try to be mindful with the way that we speak about ourselves and our lives and our friends and our enemies and the world and everything. It's like, and we're all going to slip up, nobody's perfect. We're all going to accidentally say something that we didn't mean to say or whatever. But, I'll tell you, as a witch, I've had to undo that stuff. So be careful. Be careful. It can have a lasting effect.
I hear you. I think we're always casting out energy, whether we know it or not, and that was part of why I brought it up. Is I think that many people are doing just that. They're sending this energy out, and energy follows intention. So it's a very real thing. We do have a call here, so I'm going to get to this call. All right, and this is area code 845. You're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Brent Carlton from the Pharmacy Seeds Network. And Jenna, hello.
Hello.
Hey, brother. What's on your mind tonight?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Excellent interview.
Oh.
Excellent thoughts. I just wanted to ask if Jenna was aware of Dr. Masaru Emoto and his studies on water and intentions and that sort of thing, and if she could provide any perspective from a more spiritual perspective on that. So that's my question, and I'll just let you carry on. Thanks for an excellent show, excellent guest, and looking forward to hear more. Keep it coming.
Thank you so much. So I am familiar with what you're talking about, and I wish that I was like an expert on this and I could just be like, oh, let me enlighten you. I will just say that, you asked me for my spiritual perspective on this, and like I've said, water is one of the kind of beings that I worship and work with and honor. And so I realized that water is so alive and obviously is absolutely essential to all of life. And so when we put intentions into our water, whether it's, the words that we write on the vessel that the water is in, or whether we speak directly to the water, we've seen that it can change the molecular structure of the water. I'm pretty sure that's what you're asking about. I hope I'm not wrong here. I think that's who you're speaking of with the doctor you're speaking of. If not, oops, talking about something else.
Yes, that's exactly correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. So yeah, I do. I think that, and then of course we then, consume that water. And so I've had, clients and groups of people that I'm working with do that very thing, is just speak really lovingly about themselves to their water before they drink it, so that they can it's sort of a spell, like we were just saying, like it's a way to kind of work on your self-love, is to work with this element of water that is so essential and crucial, and we're going to be drinking it anyway, so why not infuse it with some of that intention and magic? And now of course science is proving that that's not just whatever they would say before, ridiculous witchcraft or whatever. We're realizing that actually is what's really happening, is that we're drinking this water, and all of a sudden we're drinking this beautiful water that is so much more nourishing than it would have been. And so, I mean, I don't know if that totally answers your question, but that's kind of my view on it, is that water is alive. Water has a spirit. I don't think it's anything like a spirit that we could recognize. I think it's very different than like a human spirit, but I do connect with the spirit of water. And so why not connect with it in a really intentional, positive, healing way?
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, brother?
Awesome. Thank you for your insight.
Yeah. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I just wanted to, help support what you're saying, and hopefully people will go and check out Dr. Masaru Emoto's work. I can throw a link in chat if you want. Anyway, excellent interview. Keep it coming, guys. Brett,
Thank you.
Love it. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
always.
Jenna.
Thank you so
I'll let
much.
You guys carry on.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Take care and have a good night.
Always wanted to get like a call in, like you're on a radio show or something. It was so exciting. It's like, ooh,
it's real deal.
Somebody called in.
We've got a couple questions in the chat. One of which is, do you have a website or presence online?
Oh, thank you for asking. I do. As Brent said when he introduced me, I go by the Way Witch. That's the Way, WAY Witch. So I have thewaywitch.com. I have the Waywitch at Gmail if you want to email me. I'm the Waywitch on both Facebook and Instagram. Not yet on Twitter. I think I actually tried to join Twitter and I just couldn't. It was like too much. I couldn't focus. But yeah, if you want to find me online, the Waywitch.
All right, I'm going to put that on screen for you guys so you can see it. And here is thewaywitch.com.
You'll see I've put a little flag up there saying all my sessions are distance now. I usually meet with people
right.
in person is my preference. Distance work is great, and it can be really powerful, but I just really love the energy of being with people. So
sure.
I usually probably about 80% of my sessions are in person, but currently 100% of my sessions are going to be distance for the most part. So no matter where you are, if you'd like to connect with me, I am doing distance work.
And we are sitting an appropriate distance apart
We
here
are.
too, so we're not within 6 feet, I don't think.
No, we're
so.
staying about 6 feet away. I know it might look different on the screen, but we are worlds away.
Worlds away for sure. But this is our site for all of you that are in the chat room. If you want to see that, yeah, it looks beautiful. Nice
Yeah,
job.
I do. I offer, energy work. Personal sessions are always kind of tailored to you. So sometimes we do spell work. Sometimes we do energy clearing. Sometimes it's a lot of intuitive guidance and, just like energetic maintenance, past life work, ancestral work. We do all kinds of stuff together in those sessions. I also do tarot readings. I do lessons and mentorship, which is really easy to do online because those are basically conversations with some, techniques and stuff thrown in depending on where you're at in your personal journey. I do house clearings. Those are probably my main things.
Really?
I mean, if you go to my offerings, you'll see I have just a ton of stuff. I do events every month, although this month's event got postponed. But I do events every month in Portland, so once in a while here in Sandpoint. I officiate, weddings and things where you want an officiant, baby blessings and stuff. I do that kind of thing.
Oh,
kind of an all around witch, whatever you need. I'm always like, I've had people come to me and be like, do you do this? And I'm like, hell yeah, I do now. Let's figure it out together. I work with a lot of spirits, and the other side, I work with death a lot. I feel really honored to have that be one of the things I've been called to do. So, I do death rites in person or from afar. I never guarantee that I can communicate with spirits, but because I don't like to, I'm not a medium per se, but I have been able to connect with spirits. So sometimes people will come to me and they can feel like one of their loved ones is kind of hanging around and wants to give them a message. And I can usually connect in that way because they're right there and they do want to connect. I don't really know how to summon a spirit who doesn't want to, and nor do I wish to do that. But
right.
yeah.
Right.
So, it takes a lot of different forms, which I feel really fortunate about because I love the adventure and mystery and challenge of that, of always having kind of a little something different to do
Well, yeah.
in my work.
And people's needs, I'm sure, vary so widely for this kind of these kind of approaches. Nobody has the same problem, I would bet.
Yeah, no, we're all dealing with different stuff. Although I will say that there is a lot of commonality in all of us. I've found a lot of comfort in that, actually, especially when I realize it kind of, there's cycles, all of a sudden everybody's coming to me and they're all dealing with, this collective wound of something, or, it's like, I do know you can feel how connected and alike we are when you start realizing that even though it takes a different shape, it's ultimately the same thing. We're all
Right.
dealing with a lot of the same wounds, and, yeah, and we're all kind of trying to learn and grow, and so I'm always honored if I can help with that at all.
Well, that's one of the things I love about doing this show, is that it's really given me the opportunity to have some incredible discussions with incredible people. And that can be, call-ins, it can be emails, it can be interviews, or having like you in the studio here. This is really cool. I mean, I love this discussion because like I said, it's really connecting a lot of my dots that I've had. So, obviously I may need a session.
I like to say that we all do. I mean, it's, everybody's fine. You don't need a session if you don't feel like you need a session, but I need a session, we all need it. It's just like we all need a massage.
Yes.
Right. Even if you just had a massage, do you still need a massage? Probably. You know what I mean? It's can you survive without it? Of course you can.
Oh my God. I'll tell you, I went to massage therapy school and I'm a certified massage therapist years ago, but it was one of the best times of my life because every day I got a massage and I got so spoiled. It was awesome. But you're right. It's cool. Body work is cool. Energy work is cool. And it's powerful. I don't think enough people probably take the energy work as seriously, but I don't think, in our Western thinking, we don't realize the fact that we are manifest versions of our energy, right? So
Yeah.
we think that, you got a cold, well, you get some tissues, you go get you get some cold medicine and you just kind of ride it out. But I think personally that, things like colds and illnesses, and I'm not trying to make this about the COVID deal, but I'm just saying that in generally, I think that sometimes illnesses are are just our way of slowing down, because we accumulate so much garbage. And then like a cold, for instance, I believe is very utilitarian for us. I really believe that. And I don't know why. It just comes to me like it's important to have colds once in a while because we need to purge. We need to release. And I think that maybe it's because we don't do enough energy work, and, we accumulate this stuff throughout our journeys. And, I think that what you're doing is very powerful and very necessary.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I'm obviously a witch and really, buy into all this stuff. So every time I have an illness or an injury or something, I really do take a moment to kind of sit with like, what am I supposed to learn here? And whether or not it happened so that I could learn something, regardless, I can learn something, right, from what I'm going through. And I'll tell you, I don't really want to get into it, but I had some health stuff this summer, and it put me through it. It was like I learned and grew so much. It felt like an initiation. It was like this rite of passage I had to go through, and it was hard. It was really hard. I was in bed rest for a month in the middle of the summer when I had all these plans and I was so excited and I just wanted to do all these things, and I ended up doing none of those things. And in the end, I felt so thankful for it, and I felt it was this thing that was happening in my body, and I took full responsibility for it, because I was like, no one else did this. I created this. Like, how fucking, excuse me if I'm not allowed to say that, powerful am I that I created this thing in my body that I have to heal from and work through so that I can learn all these lessons and grow in all these ways. And, and so if you're in one of those places right now, I mean, I hope that you're well, but if you're not, you might just consider like, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Because you're there either way. Yes. It can just be like a shitty thing that's happening to you, or it can be a really great opportunity. Yes. And I know I realize I'm saying that from a place of privilege, because I'm relatively healthy, and my life has been pretty blessed. So I understand that you might not feel like it's so easy to do that. And I just hope that you have some sort of support and some sort of, means to bring some of that healing and awareness to your struggle. And yeah, I do think that our energy and our body, just like our heart and our mind and our body, we're realizing how connected they are. When we've had our heart broken, we can physically feel it. It's like, it's not so far-fetched. We kind of tend to like separate these things out. Like, oh no, this is my body and this is my mind. But it's like, where do you think your mind is? It's like in your body. And so the same with our energy. It's like, we can say that it's different and that our energy is not affecting our physicality and vice versa. But of course it is. Sure. It's all me, which is why I had to have that moment of like, oh, I did this. Mm-hmm. No one did this to me. I did this. I created this thing in my body, and now I have to deal with it. And I get to deal with it, and trying to just like have that perspective of how can I learn and grow from this so I don't have to go through it again. Thanks. It'd be great to not go through this again.
So there was another question in the chat that I forgot to ask you, but it was, do you believe in aliens?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a skeptic. Like, I don't necessarily just wholeheartedly believe in everything, but at the same time, like I know enough to know that there's so much more in this world, in this universe, than we could ever begin to understand. So like how like arrogant would I have to be to say like, oh no, there's no aliens. Come on. It's like, of course there are. Like, come on, of course there are.
It's funny because I had the same idea, and I never saw anything, but it was when I came up here to this area. And I've talked to other people from this area that have had some pretty profound sightings. Have you ever seen anything? I
have, yeah. I have. I mean, it's it's the kind. I haven't seen anything that was like so. It's one of those things where you can kind of, your rational mind comes in and starts saying like, was that something? Yeah. But I'll tell you, the one that was the most kind of outstanding was here. And it was out at the lake, and it was with someone else. So that was cool. There was like two of us seeing this thing. Oh, cool. And basically we were just stargazing, and we both at the same time kind of noticed this one particular triangle of stars because it was brighter than the other ones. And we're both looking at it, and it's just a triangle of stars. And then all of a sudden it started moving. Ooh. All three of them, they were just like moving across the sky. And we were like, do you see that? Like, you see that, right? And it kind of moved one way, and then it just like, went the other way and disappeared. Ooh. And we were like, well, that was 100% a UFO.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the area. I don't know what's going on up here. but there's something going on up here.
I know a lot of people who have seen stuff like that up here. Yeah.
Man, I mean, I saw it. I saw a flying saucer. I mean, like this flying saucer. Now I only saw it in night vision. Only in night vision.
Oh, interesting.
When I tried to look at it with my naked eyes, it wasn't there. But when I looked in night vision, it was. So it was cloaked.
Yeah.
That'll cook your bacon.
Right? I mean, yeah, I tend to, if someone tells me they see something, I'm not going to tell them it's not true. You know what I mean? Like I believe people. I believe things. Do I necessarily put my whole belief into it if I haven't experienced it personally? No, that's where my skeptic is. But like, I know that there's more than vision,
right?
Like we have a lot of senses and we really rely heavily on our vision, and it's an important sense. I'm thankful for mine. And I think that, we can underestimate our other senses, that we can sense, we can feel things, we can hear things, we can, touch things, whatever. And those senses are also real. And so, I might not have seen a Bigfoot, but I've certainly felt like I was in the presence of one before. And you know what I mean? So it's like, I tend to believe.
Yeah.
I like to believe. I like to live in a mysterious, magical world. Like
that's exactly on the bio I used for my show. It's like, I love living in a world of mystery. It's important because otherwise this is an incredibly boring place.
Just paperwork and stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's like mowing the lawn. God, I'm sick of that. Show me a Bigfoot. That's right? Fun. Yeah. But now you talked about cleansing, and I'd love to hear some ideas of how to cleanse for people that they can try if they're dealing with something negative out there. Not the real pro stuff, but just some best practices.
You're talking like in a house?
Yeah. Like say people are dealing with a negative presence in the house. I get a lot of emails from people that are.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Well, first let me just give you my philosophy. And this is by no means, fact, but this is the way I feel. This is the way I've kind of experienced the world so far. I don't really believe in evil. I more think the way I tend to approach situations like this is I consider that what I'm dealing with as being wounded, like a wounded animal. So if you have a wounded animal, like a wounded dog, for instance, is the dog inherently evil? No. Right. Is the dog potentially dangerous? Yes. Right.
Good point.
And so I will go into it knowing that there's possibly danger, but I don't go into it like, is it okay for me to, I keep wanting to curse and then I'm like, is this bad? I don't know. Is this like an all ages thing? Keep it chill. Yeah. Okay. So I don't go in being like, I'm going to banish you back to hell or whatever. I go in being like, hey, I understand that you're hurting and I understand that you're stuck or whatever, confused or whatever. I'd love to help. These are my boundaries, right? I'm not like, oh, let me just, rescue you. It's more like,
right.
Don't cross my boundaries. Like it's firm, but it's also like, I'd like to help. And so I think that goes a really, really, really long way. I know that there's plenty of people who've experienced things that they think of as evil, and I'm not here to dismiss that. But for me, and I've experienced a lot of things, and a lot of things have been very scary. And I always just try to approach it with like, what do you need? Like, what do you need to not be here anymore? And that to me has really proven that even the things that felt really dangerous and scary, have eventually, let me work with them and worked with me to be released. And so I look at it like nothing wants to be stuck. Nothing is wanting to be stuck, earthbound, whether it's a human spirit or something else. Nobody wants that. Like, why would you want that when there's this wide, mysterious, magical universe to be a part of? And so I always come in with like, how can I help you to be released? I want you to be free. You deserve freedom. And that approach works really well. So I suggest that if you're able to go in with that kind of mindset, so that you're not coming at them like, listen, you evil son of a, like, I'm going to mess you up. You know what I mean? Like, then they're going to come right back at you with that energy. So it's like, for your own safety as well as anything else, like be respectful, be kind, be compassionate, be firm, have your boundaries and protection in place. Don't do anything without calling in your allies. And, for me, it's the elements and the celestial bodies. I also call in the ancestors and the lineages of medicine people and witches through time. There's people who call in on deities. There's, Lord knows there's plenty of those. And angels, the archangels and all that, whatever works for you. Jesus, Mary, whatever you want to call on. light, the force, whatever. But don't go in alone. You know, call your animals, call your plants, whatever allies you're working with. Don't try to do it alone. And then, you know, fresh air, you know, open windows, open doors, like it's amazing how much that can help. Fresh air. You don't want to be, you know, trying to get them out of there with nowhere for them to go. So you open up all your windows and doors that you can. Even if it's cold outside, it's going to be good. It's going to help. I always start by making a lot of noise. I kind of imagine that like some of it, most of what you're dealing with is energy, not entity. It's like stagnant energy that's accumulated like dust over the years. And so I go in and make noise, bang my drum or rattle something or whistle or clap or yell or whatever. And I just kind of waken everything up. That will, after that first round, if you're sensitive, you will feel like the house is like swirling with birds or something, like everything is up. And so that's why it's good to have the windows open. It starts going out. Then, you know, there's smoke cleansing. So you bring in your herb bundles, you know, sage, cedar, please get these things that are, you know, sustainably harvested, please. Sage, cedar, so many things work. You know, you can burn lavender, you can burn bay, find something that's local and sustainable and use that. Doesn't have to be white sage. If it is, please make sure it was respectfully cultivated, etc. But, you know, like use some sort of smoke. Incense works too. Use some sort of smoke because the smoke will like help to gather those things and then it drifts out those open windows, right? I sing songs. I make up songs as I go. Just kind of singing, same thing, like singing to them. Again, I'm trying to be a friend here. So I'm singing, like, let me help you, like follow the smoke out into the sky, you know, follow it up into the light, like be free, be free, be free. You know, I do a couple rounds of that and, you know, that will take care of like 95% of your situations. Now, if you have a spirit, that's a whole different thing. They might not leave with that. And so then it kind of comes down to, you know, if you can get help, but if you can't, then my suggestion is try to open up a dialogue. You know, what do you need? What do you need to feel like you can leave? You know, I have a special crystal that I use sometimes to like capture an energy, and then I do like a clearing with that crystal later. Sometimes I will do like death rites on a spirit if that's what's keeping them trapped. Sometimes I'll sit with a candle and sing to them and talk to them and you know, witness whatever they need me to witness or hear whatever message they need me to hear. It's probably not an evil spirit and it probably doesn't want to be there, but it might be confused. It might be scared. It might be stuck. And so it's like, it's very individual, each one, you know, each time you're dealing with one of these, it's like, it's different. So that's why I say, if you can, it's really nice to call in somebody who knows what they're doing, but I understand not everybody can, and they're not easy to find either. I'm one of the only people I know who does this work, of house and space clearing, homeland, stuff like that.
Sure.
There are other people who are doing it, obviously, but I just don't know many. I know lots of people who are doing like energy work, but aren't willing to do this. And, I think, you know, there is a danger to it. Like the scariest times I've ever experienced have been in haunted houses. You know, those have been like the most like, oh, what am I dealing with here? You know, and been frightened and felt like I was in danger. So I understand that it's kind of like the big guns. You gotta go in there and you gotta be powerful. You got to be in your power. You know, you don't want to be presenting like a weakness, just like you would with a wounded animal, right? You don't want to, you want to be compassionate, but you don't want to be like weak, if that makes sense. You know, you got to be strong,
absolutely,
and secure in what you're doing. And so, you know, I would say, if you're dealing with this and you don't have anybody to help you and you have to do it on your own, just, try to do it at a time when you feel more safe and secure. So if that's morning or night for you, depending on what your vibe is, if it's sunny or rainy or full moon or new moon, whatever, you know, like it's all about what makes you feel, you know, it's not like there's a rule that, oh, it only works on a new moon. It's like, no, it works when it works best for you. So pick a time when you feel strong, call your allies and go in with compassion and strength and just say like, how can I help you? Like you can't want to be here anymore. You know, you don't deserve that. Like there's a world, there's freedom, like help me help you get out of here, you know, cause this isn't working.
Right. No, I agree. And I think that I've often wondered, it's like, why, you know, we hear, we do a lot of ghost stories and ghost encounters and stuff. And we hear, you know, how many haunted closets, and I can't tell you, it's got to be in the thousands. And it's like, what what could an entity be doing in a closet that could be so interesting that they would choose that over, going on? And what occurs to me in at least some of these cases is that, of course, with some religious practices, there's the judgment. It's, the judgment. And, I mean, if people aren't good people, generally they know they're not the best people that they should be. And so if you're looking at the end of your life, I mean, it's over and there's the light, but if you're worried that you might be burning in a lake of fire for eternity, well, hell, that closet sounds great. It's like, that's like deluxe accommodations rather than, sitting in a lake of fire and, because you weren't as good a person as you should have been. And so I think that fear may be a big part of it, at least for the, the formerly human entities, and I can't say that that's, completely the case. I think that sometimes people just were really attached to, something, whether it's a home, whether it's a piece of land, whether it's, the place where all the good things happened in their life, and they just don't want to leave it, I guess. But there does seem to be a real problem, and I don't know if it's just get worse over time. The longer that they're stuck, the more confused they get. Do you suppose?
I think that time is different on the other side, but yeah, I do think so. And I think what you said is true. I think that can definitely be a part of it, is like a feeling of connection or safety and like fear of the unknown, of moving on.
Yeah.
I also think that what I notice a lot is when someone dies, instantly or tragically or something, that can also kind of be confusing. Mm-hmm. And so like, it's not like you're on your deathbed and you're having this opportunity to say goodbye to everyone and you're seeing your life ending and you're in this kind of almost state of control, right? It's more like you're alive and then you're dead and you're like, what just happened? Yeah. And so I think that a lot of times that's what it is too, is they just like, they don't really understand that they're dead, and maybe or they feel like they have unfinished business, Yeah. And so I don't think that they necessarily realize that they've been trapped in a closet for 10 or 20 years, but because I don't think that time feels the same, but I do think that they are experiencing this kind of half existence in that way, because we're not, in my belief, I don't think we're meant to stay here. I think that this whole earth human thing is a choice of an embodiment of our spirit, and we come to do it and have this human experience, and then there's like a vast multiverse out there to explore afterwards. And so I don't believe in hell, so I agree with that. I don't know if hell is, I don't believe in it. So here I am saying I like to believe in things, but I don't believe in hell, and I don't. But I do think people do. And so I think what you said is valid. I think that there is a fear that they're not going to pass judgment, and they're better off not going out there. But spirits, if you're listening, like you deserve to be free. There's a whole other experience out there that we can only begin to imagine, but I'm pretty sure it's better than being stuck in a closet. So
it must be. Depends on the closet, though. I've seen some nice ones. I'm just saying.
Right.
We got another caller, so let's get to this one. And this is, I think this is Lewis. Is this Lewis?
Hey guys, I'm Jen.
Hi, Lewis.
Welcome to the show, brother. What's on your mind tonight?
Nothing. I was seeing this ball of energy while watching the show with Jen.
What was that? You saw a ball of energy while you're watching the show?
Yeah, it's like a shooting star.
Oh. Mm.
So yeah, I think it's her energy. But yeah, I was listening to Jen, and all my ears are ringing.
Yeah. Is it making sense to you?
Like downloading. Yeah, a little bit. I'm actually downloading kind of all the stuff from her stuff.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Good. Did you have a question for Jen? Jenna, sorry.
How does empaths or voices like me can know how to sense the energies around me?
Sorry, I don't understand you very well, but it sounds like you want to know how to sense the energies around you. Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That is a fun question, actually. I really like that question. I was wondering if we were going to get to this topic tonight, because I like to kind of enter this question through this concept of the clairs. And I don't know if you've ever talked about that on the show before, if you know what I'm talking about when I say that.
I'm familiar with the term. I don't remember what it means.
Yeah, that's
though.
fine. And it's kind of
clairaudience.
Yeah, so
clairsentience,
right,
yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So everybody knows about clairvoyance. We've all heard of that one. That's seeing, right? That's vision. There's clairaudience, which is hearing. Clairsentience is touch and feeling. Claircognizance is knowing. There's also like clairgustance is tasting, and clairalliance is smelling. Like there's some fun ones, right? There's all the senses have a super sense basically. And so I think it's important when you're starting out with a question like yours, Lewis, is to kind of first start to kind of determine which clairs you possess and how strong they are, because that's going to determine how you receive information. So if you're walking around thinking, I should be able to see it, and if I can't see it, it's not there, then you're going to be missing out on the fact that you have clairsentience and you can actually feel it, even if you can't see it, or clairaudience, and maybe you're hearing it. And that also, let me just say that, especially with clairaudience and clairvoyance, which is hearing and seeing respectively, they can be either subjective or objective. And so objective clairvoyance, for instance, is if right now I looked right here and I saw a ghost standing in front of me with my eyes. That's objective clairvoyance. Now, if I, in my mind's eye, saw a ghost, or closed my eyes and saw a ghost standing here in the room with us, that's subjective clairvoyance. Both are valid. So you don't have to actually see someone's aura just by looking at them. If you can close your eyes and see their aura, you're still clairvoyant. And so I think it's really important for us to determine what our individual strengths are, because if you don't feel things, that doesn't mean you don't still have some clairs. You might have to just try it from a different sense. So, do you hear something? Do you see something? Do you know something? Claircognizance is just when all of a sudden you just know something. You just say, oh, yep, that was a ghost that just went through my room. I know it, and why do you know it? I mean, it's a mystery, I guess, but that's what that is. That's just that claircognizance. It's that clear knowing. So, I would start by just kind of exploring, like, do you tend to, like, can you visualize? That's the first step. Like with that tree thing I talked about earlier, like, can you close your eyes and see the tree? If you can, you have clairvoyance. That's the beginning of it right there, is being able to use your imagination in that visual way. If you can't, there's nothing wrong with that. It just means you have to try a different sense. Like, can you feel the tree? Can you sense it? Can you maybe it's a color, or maybe it's a sound, like it's important to first acknowledge and then develop what your specific super senses are, because we all have them. Some of us are more in tune with them because we've been spending more time being in tune with them, but it's just like anything else. You can develop that muscle, and it starts by just listening to it. It starts by paying attention. If you sense something, don't dismiss it. Don't say, oh no, that was, and ignore it, because your brain will come in immediately and say, no. That's not what just happened. That was your imagination. Well, what do you think your imagination is? Where does that come from? You know what I mean? So it's like, why do we feel like this need to dismiss these things? Because they are not so, I guess, widely recognized as being true. But, there's enough people out there who are using their clairvoyance, myself included, as like my part of my livelihood, that it's like, I know that it's real. And so there's a need to really trust yourself and pay attention when you do get information from whatever sense, to really believe that that's what's happening. Like, you don't have to see the garlic on the stove to know there's garlic being cooked in the house. You know what I mean? Like, so you just have to, it's like, just tune in other ways. Does that help? You still there?
Yeah.
Good deal, brother. Well, thanks for the call. I appreciate you calling in. It's good to hear from you.
You too. Me and Tiny was joking around about her, she's like ASMR,
ASMR.
Like, listening to Jenna gives me the tingles. And
Hey, Lewis.
Sounds like you're clairaudient.
You're clairaudient, Lewis. All right, brother. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, that was Lewis. Good to hear from you guys. And ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are open 720-923-0500. If you have a question, we might have the answers. So give us a call. We're here waiting. I was going to ask you about crystals because I'm fascinated by the idea that crystals are such unique energy amplifiers. And I guess I don't know a whole lot about them. So, self-confessed. I've always been fascinated by them, never taken the initiative to learn about them. But what can you tell us about crystals and why do they work?
Interesting question. Good topic. I self-confessed am also not an expert on crystals.
Okay.
I also am fascinated by them, and I have a lot of them.
Okay.
I do think that there is, of course, the possibility to be an expert, right? There's plenty of information out there. You can read and learn about crystals and their properties, just like you can read and learn about plants and their properties.
Sure.
Also, I believe, and this is the way I do it, and I'm not saying this is the right way, is I just kind of communicate with them directly. I just say because like we said, everything has a spirit. And so I believe that crystals do too. And so when I'm looking for a crystal for a certain purpose, or even just I'm in a crystal store and I'm just seeing if I connect with one, I just allow myself to be drawn to them. I use my clairsentience to pick up a crystal that I feel connected to and just kind of check in with it energetically. And then I'll just ask it hey, do you want to come home with me? Do you want to protect me? What are you providing? What is your special gift? Because people will tell you amethyst is good for protection or something. And I don't think that's wrong, but I do think that every amethyst is going to be a little different. So, maybe not every amethyst is going to be as protective as another, for instance, and so I think that the reason I think they're so potent is because they're grown deep down in the belly of the earth, and the earth is undeniably magic. And so I think that there's all this again, we're talking about that elemental energy that exists inside of these stones and these little mini pieces of the earth that they're really embodying the spirit and the elemental magic of the earth. And so I think that just like a flame, just like a candle, has the potential to be incredibly magical and really connect us to the element of fire. So does a crystal connect us to the magic of earth. And so I think that's why, I'm sure there's way more molecular stuff that I know nothing about. But that's definitely there too, for why they amplify things. I know science uses a lot of quartz crystals and stuff because they are amplifiers. What I do is I take a quartz crystal and I will do a little spell with it. I'll speak to it and put it over the fire, and then I put it in my water and I put it out under the moonlight and just let that amplify my moon water. That's
cool.
My witchy way of working with a crystal. I think that we should follow and explore the things that inspire and excite us. And so, if you are excited by crystals, then you should explore that. And if you're not, don't worry about it. You can be a witch and not be a crystal expert, and you can be a crystal expert and not be a witch. It's you don't, it's it doesn't, there's no reason not to explore what excites you. And if crystals help you feel connected to whatever it is that you want to be connected to, then by all means explore that relationship. I think that, I think crystals certainly have a lot of power. I think that's why we're drawn to them. But then beyond that, you're going to have to start asking some scientists for the
it seems
facts.
so, because I mean, the funny thing is I've actually heard your process before of how you pick out crystals. And it was Joel Robinson, who's a psychic. He's actually a shaman as well. And he was talking about that, how he loves crystal stores, and what he'll do is go in, and I guess hours can pass for him and it feels like minutes, but he'll just be sitting there, seeing which ones are drawing him to them and feeling them. And I got to admit, many times I've, held crystals and felt a profound, it's almost a vibration, for lack of a better word. It's just kind of like you're like an electric toothbrush kind of feeling. It's oh my God, what does that mean? And how does that work? But it's really a very real perception that I'm getting.
Absolutely. And you got to figure that everything has a vibration, right? We're kind of learning that too, is that's what kind of makes matter, and then makes, things become different forms of matter and stuff. I mean, again, to speak very unscientifically, but everything has a vibration. We know that. And so, crystals and then you have a vibration and your crystal has a vibration. If you're holding and you guys have a resonance, then you're going to feel it. I mean, I've definitely picked up crystals and been like transported, and I picked up crystals and not felt anything. And I've, everything in between.
Yes.
And so I just tend to allow them to draw me in. I figure if they want to work with me, they'll let me know.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. And it's neat that process is working for so many people. I've heard it before, which surprises me. I thought that when Joel said that, I was like, well, that's really interesting. But I can't say it didn't make sense. It certainly did, but it was a very unique thing to hear. But now I'm hearing it again. So maybe that's, for me, that's what I have to do. Cause I think that knowledge comes to us, in some very profound ways, and definitely the reinforcement of that same knowledge coming at me is like, okay, I got to do some work with crystals then. I've got to do it. I can't put it off anymore.
One thing I will say about working with crystals is that, it's important to cleanse your crystals. When you bring them home from a store or something, cleanse them. And then if you've been using them a lot, cleanse them. And when I say cleanse them, there's lots of ways to cleanse them, just like there's lots of ways to cleanse ourselves, right? You can use water on certain crystals, not all crystals. Some you will ruin if you use water on them. So be careful. Like selenite will dissolve if you use water with it. So just be careful. Don't use water on everything, but you can use water on certain crystals. But there's plenty of other things. You can pass your crystal over the flame, over a candle. You can put your crystals. A lot of people will do this, put their crystals either outside or like on a windowsill during the full moon or the new moon, whatever you feel called to do. Or during I like to do, if I was home right now, I would be doing an equinox crystal bath. I'd pull all my crystals out and let the equinox energy kind of cleanse them. You can also just put them on the earth. That will cleanse them really quickly. Or put them in salt. Same sort of thing. You can blow on them. You can take a feather and dust them off. But it is important to cleanse them because they will accumulate energy as well. And if they've been in a store for a while, who knows what they've accumulated. So you might as well clear them off before you start using them. And then if you've used them a lot, then clear them off as well. Okay. And whatever feels good to you. Like I've had crystals where I got a crystal once from a friend that with like the knowledge, she was like, this needs to be cleansed. And it was a really powerful crystal, and it really did. And I just did all of the above, but not all my crystals need all of that. It's like, so you kind of have to feel, you have to trust yourself. Again, you have to trust those senses that that what you've done is sufficient. If it doesn't feel sufficient, then you keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
We got another call.
Yay.
And this is right from here in Sandpoint.
Oh boy.
And Julie, are you there? Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome to the show.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. You're loud and clear.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, I'm too loud. Okay, so I had a question for you. I saw that you are local, and I'm local also. And being from this area, you've traveled other places. And this might be a personal thing, but I wanted to ask you, how is the energy here versus Portland, or personally, what do you like about the energy here in this area?
Yeah, that's a fun question. I am pretty partial to Sandpoint, so I really love the energy of Sandpoint. But I think that, one of the reasons at least that I feel such good energy here is because it is so wild, like the lake, I think, is doing a lot of work for the energy of this town. And so as are the surrounding mountain ranges, all the trees, they're really helping to keep the energy clear. And, because there's way more trees than there are people. I don't know if that's true, but that's how it feels. It just feels like it's easier to kind of, feel clear when you're here, I guess is what I mean to say. Because in the city, for instance, and like I said, I love Portland, and I feel really good there, but there is a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy of people there. I do think it's overall pretty good energy, and I really enjoy the energy of that city, but it's very different than here. There's not nearly as many kind of outlets, and you'll notice for instance, the rivers that run through the city, they're doing their best, but they feel a little bit heavier than the lake does to me. They're trying to help cleanse the energy, but there's so much energy and things like that. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but I do think that every place has its own energy.
No, that does answer it. And I mean, I was just wondering, 'cause, like, you're from here, and I mean, I go to a different city, and for me, it's what does the city smell like? You know, like I remember I went to Hawaii and it smelled really well. You know, versus here, what it smells like, and what other towns smell like. So I mean, I was just wondering.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up Hawaii, because I was in my mind, I was kind of bringing up Hawaii too, thinking that's one of the other places I've lived in the world, and Hawaii to me is probably the most energetically magnificent places I've ever been, and I think that's because of the really like strong concentration of elements that are there. You know, like you're on the lava, that fire, and that sun is so strong, you know, and then the wind is like, the trade winds are blowing like 360 days a year or something, and you're surrounded by ocean, and plus there's all these waterfalls, and then the earth is so verdant and green and abundant and prolific. And so when I'm in Hawaii, I feel utterly magical and connected to everything in a way that I don't feel anywhere else. And I do, like I said, I do really feel that here too. But Hawaii, I don't know. Hawaii is just like a whole next level. It's pretty intense. But yeah, here is wonderful. I love it here. Like I said, I'm very partial. I've left a long time ago, but I always come back. And yeah, I do think that the forest and the mountains and the lake are really, and the lakes, I mean, there's lots of lakes, Ponderay obviously being our jewel, but there's so many lakes around, and they're all really helping to just like keep our own personal energy clear, and also keep kind of the energy of the town clear. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I like going down to the beach at night. I don't know, that night with the lake, it feels really soothing and calming, and it's definitely a different element than during the day at the beach. But I understand what you're saying about Hawaii, because when I was there, I had a really profound moment too that kind of, you know, scared me a little bit. It was so profound. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for answering my question, and I'm excited to meet another local. So hello.
Hi. Thanks for calling in, Julie. It's nice to talk to you.
Take care, Julia. Thanks again.
Yeah. Bye.
And Julia is also one of our mods in the chat room, so that's really cool. That's wonderful. I know we're kind of burning down here, but I wanted to take some time to talk about candles. Now, is the color of a candle really significant in the essence of the candle, or is it more a projection of the person?
Yeah, it's significant if you think so. I mean,
Fair
truly,
enough.
that's what
true.
I believe.
Yep.
You know, it's like if it helps you, it's all about what helps you focus. Like you can do magic without a candle at all.
Yeah.
I love working with fire, and so I always want a candle when I'm doing anything. And so, you know, I always have a candle there. But the flame is what draws me. You know, it's not so much about the candle itself, but that's just me. You know. So I need the fire to feel connected and to focus. Other people need the color to connect and focus, and so they'll choose, you know, a red one for love and a green one for money and whatever. There's all these different color magics, and I think there's validity to that, but I think it really comes down to what does it do for you, because you can do magic without any tools at all, and the only reason to have tools is because they help us focus our intentions and kind of amplify our power and our beliefs, and then all of a sudden they are significant. So it's totally up to you.
That's a perfect answer. And I agree with that completely, because I think that we do manifest, and if, you know, it's done unto you as you believe, you know, the old Christ lines from the Bible. And I
think Jesus was a witch. Some people won't like that, but
I'm just like,
I do think so.
Let me brace for this.
Yeah. Well, you know, he was just like a healer and a carer, and he was connected to the divine. It's like, hello.
And you know, and that's very true. And that's the misconception that most people have about it, is that they think, as we started out with, that people are in dark service to some nefarious energies of the universe, and it's really not that. And if you guys have paid attention, if you didn't really understand before, I'm hoping that you understand now, that it's not a practice of you know, power and, you know, control and all of those more negative base emotions. It's a connection. It's our birthright in many ways. And I advocate people believe whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, whatever feels right, believe that. But And it's kind of the response I had for the person that was acting really inappropriately on the messages earlier on the show post. It was just such a hateful remark, and it's whatever you believe is fine, but don't cast that upon other people based on your lens and condemn other people because you don't understand. But we've got some minutes left, Jenna. I'd like you to feel like, if there's any end cap for the show that you'd like to put out there, please. We'd love to hear it.
Oh, the pressure. One thing I did want to mention is that I've been writing an advice column for a few years. It's all on my website under Ask a Witch. And if there's a forum if you want to submit a question. I always answer them anonymously. And I'm also transitioning that into a podcast, which is not yet out, but stay tuned for the Ask a Witch podcast. Because I did my first recording. Now I have to learn how to do the the technical side of it to turn it from just words and sounds into a podcast, but I'll get there.
Sure.
That'll be on my website as well. There's also I do storytelling events, and there's a bunch of links to those stories on my website. And so if you want to learn more about me or see more about that or ask your own questions in that format, I welcome it. I don't always get to them right away, but I do always get to them. And yeah, I feel like I would just like to say that there's to me what I'm seeing in my practice is a resurgence of witchcraft and of the claiming of the word witch. And it's not important for you to use the word witch if you don't like it. You can use whatever word you want. But if you like the word witch and you feel a little shy about using it, you're allowed to call yourself a witch. If you make any kind of art at all, including the food you make or the home you keep or whatever, you can call yourself an artist. It's a self label. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to be a professional artist to be an artist, and you don't have to be a specific kind of artist to be an artist. And it's the same with a witch. You don't have to know about crystals or plants or moon phases. It can be whatever it is for you. It's an expression. Witchcraft is an expression. And it has a lot of really beautiful, mediums. And so if you feel connected to that part of yourself, I encourage you to explore it. You said something about power, and I just want to say that I like to differentiate between overpowering, which is that kind of negative power we've learned and seen corrupted, and empowering, which is having power over oneself and being in a place of power. And I think that's a really important part of being a witch, is being in your power and using your power for yourself and for the good of all. Hopefully, not all witches feel that way, but most of us do, to use our power for the highest good. And it's totally different from that overpowering that we've seen. And so it's important for us to change the way we look at power so that we can step into our own power and actually change the world without needing to have power or control over anyone else or anything else. And that's what witchcraft is. It's about having power over yourself and really working in harmony with the world, not in opposition with the world, to create the reality you want to create. So a lot of you are probably witches, even if you don't use that word. And that's cool. Like I said, use the word you want. But I have a lot of people who come to me who say, I think maybe I'm a witch, but I don't know. Can I call myself a witch? Do I have to be born into it, or do I have to be initiated or something? And it's no. If you want to be a witch, you're a witch. If you want to be an artist, you're an artist. I don't care if you're playing a guitar or you're painting a picture. It's you get to choose in who you are. And so if that's how you feel, then do it. Be a witch. We need more witches, or whatever word you want to use.
Embrace your truth, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
That is excellent advice. And thank you so much for coming in and doing this. I'm really thrilled that we were able to work out a time that worked for both of us, and to have someone in the studio, which is a cool opportunity that isn't my co-host.
Yeah. So. Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. I love doing stuff like this. So
you did great. You were
very
wonderful.
Pleased.
I would like to say that we have a good friend of the show who is Paisley Wild, and she has a show that's called The Spaces Between, where she's kind of journaling and cataloging her own journey into her witchcraft and her practice. And it'd be neat if you guys got a chance to connect as well.
Yeah.
So I, with your permission, I'd like to, give your information to Paisley.
Yes, please. Absolutely. I always love connecting with other witches.
Okay. Absolutely fantastic.
One of my great joys.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to about wrap up our journey into the paranormal portal tonight. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you all learned something. I know I learned a bunch myself. So I guess that's about all I got for you. So in closing, of course, love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you can. You guys have a great night, and I'll be back tomorrow night with a 2-hour Friday show. What I'm going to do, I don't know yet, but I know you'll be entertained. All right, guys. Love you. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Good night.